Hi. Hi, today we are going to learn how to adjust a flute. In order to do this, you are going to need some light key oil, and I like using the needlepoint oil. You're also going to need a small precision flathead screwdriver like this one, and you're going to need a leak light. And for those of you who don't have access to leak light, I would recommend battery-powered Christmas lights. Now the reason you need this is so that you can see the leak. So this means you're also going to need to be in the place where you can control the amount of light coming into the room. So in here I have all the blinds are closed and I have a lamp. I'm going to turn it off so we can see this. So it's going to take me a few seconds to set up, but I will be right back with you. Welcome back. So what I did while I was gone was I threaded the Christmas lights through the flute. Now I would normally use a leak light, but because I know some of you guys won't have access, I'm going to use what you do have access to, and that is battery-powered Christmas lights. So we're going to start with a foot joint. If you follow my instructions in the guideline carefully, I'm just explaining exactly what I mean by my guidelines. So this flute can be a little bit confusing. So we're going to start with our E flat key right here. And so we want to make sure our pad is closing all around. So what you want to see is not a lot of bright light, just a dim light, which is what is happening on this key right now. And you want that dim light to be the same all the way around. And if it's not, let's say it's really open in the back, so there's a bright light coming out the back. Then I would take a small thin piece of metal. This is just used to scrape putty across the floor, and I would insert it on the side of the pad that is closing, like so. And then I would use my finger, to gently press on the other side to make that side go down. And so it's pretty straightforward. Now let's look at the other side. This is a really common issue with flutes. One of these keys will not be closing properly, or will be closing at a different time. So we're going to start with the C sharp key, and then we'll go on to the C. So the C sharp key, what we're looking for is we want to see no big glaring bright spots. And for the most part, this is closing pretty well. Now, when I press this little key just by itself, both these pads should go down at the same exact time and seal equally around. So let me see what we got going on here. And you don't want to press harder than normal. You want it to be the same amount a beginner flute player would press. So on this one, the first pad is a little bit more open than the other one. You can see that it's a little bit brighter, and we don't want that. So how are we going to fix that? Well, there's three things you can do. The first can be to either take away or add cork to this foot, which is certainly a way of raising and lowering the pad. I'm going to show you the fastest way and the one that requires the least amount of materials, which is simply to just bend it. So let's think about this. If this pad is higher than this one, then we need to lower this pad a little bit. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your thumb, and you're going to place it underneath these two keys. And once it's underneath, I'm just going to gently press on the key that is too high, the pad that is too high, to lower it like so. And I just gently tap it. I'm not pressing super hard, just enough to get the difference. And we're going to check it. So look how much that little tap made of a difference. Already this is even and flush, and that's what you want to see on your beginner flutes, foot joints. So now I'm going to thread the body with the Christmas lights, and we're going to check leaks for those. So I've gone ahead and I've threaded the Christmas lights through our body. And we're going to start with the bottom key. So if I was playing the flute, it would look like this. And we're going to start with this key. These 4 pads right here are essential. If they are not aligned and adjusted properly, then the rest of the horn has no chance of being in tune or working. So we're going to start with this one. And when I press this pad, this pad should also come down at the same time and seal the same amount. So let's see what we got here. So when I press this pad down, you can see that the pad next to it is almost completely dark, whereas this pad is showing a little bit of light. So that tells me that this pad is lower than this one. So we need to lower that a bit. How are we going to do that? Well, I'm going to turn on the light so you can see better. But on all flutes, except for like high professional models, there are adjustment screws. So the adjustment screw for this one happens to be behind it. Can't tell if you can see that or not. What my finger is pointing at, that is an adjustment screw. These are adjustment screws right here. And if you turn it one way or the other, it changes the height of this key. So we want to lower this one a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over to the back. I'm going to determine what is changing. So what I need to do is, instead of lowering that key, I need to raise this key a little bit. So I'm going to turn counterclockwise to raise it. And we're going to check and see what that did. The key to flute is just check, 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 like all the time, check. So already this is a lot better. We're seeing the light is a little bit more even. So we're going to go ahead and move on to this key. So when I press this key, once again, this pad is going to come down, and we want them to come down in equal amounts. So this is actually looking, this one looks really good. When I press down, there's equal amounts of light showing. I'm going to go ahead and press that down so you can see. There's equal amounts of light showing, which is very good. So now we're going to move on to this key right here, the last one. And when this goes down, once again, this pad should come down. So I'm going to check over here and show you guys what I find. I'm going to move the light around a little bit so I can get a better sense. Okay, cool. So on this one, I'm going to go ahead and close all of them so you're not blinded by light. But on this pad, the right side of the pad is a little bit more open than the left. So we're going to use our thin piece of metal, and we're going to put it on the side that is closing, and I'm just going to gently push on the side that is open. So this is what we have so far. Push, push. Now I'm going to check it. Wow, already huge difference. Now it's closing on both sides. So that's your first set of adjustments. Now that we've set that, we can move on to the next. So the next thing you're going to check are the 2 middle keys. And on an offset flute, this will be the offset G. So when I press this, both these pads come down. So we're going to check and make sure that they're both sealing at the same time and have the same amount of light showing. And these are in perfect, I'm sorry, try not to blind you. These keys are in perfect alignment, which is just great. So now we check that, we're going to check our G sharp key, which is this foot right here. And the pad itself is on the back, and so you kind of have to move the flute around to see whether or not it's closing. So on this one, you can see, at least from this angle, that yes, it is closing, it is sealed, there's not air coming out of there, there's no leaks. Now, the next part is a little tricky, and I marked it in the tutorial as tricky. We're going to look at, our first pads that we looked at was this one, which is played by the first finger of your right hand, which brings down this pad, but it also brings down another pad, and that's this one up here. So if you see, when I press down on this, all 3 of them close, and they should be closing at the same time and sealing. So I'm going to check and see if they're sealing or not. slide around. So wow, it's pretty close. I'm gonna show you a couple things. When I press this down, sorry, so you can know what fingers I'm using. My right hand finger is bringing all of them down. But the thing is, this pad that I'm tapping on is a little bit more open than these two, and that's pretty common. That means that it's out of adjustment, and that means you're going to have a lot of trouble playing Fs, which is a common note on the flute, so you don't want to have trouble playing on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this handy dandy adjustment screw in the back to adjust it. So if the pad that is connected to all the other pads is leaking, that means that the first one we adjusted is a little too low, so we need to loosen it up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn clockwise to lower it a little bit more. Okay, I need to lower it just a little bit more. And your turns are never like 360. There's minuscule amounts. Okay, here we go. Now they are all closing the same amount. That is what you want to look for. So now that we've adjusted that, we're going to go ahead and hit this finger up here. And this is played by your middle finger in your left hand, and it brings both this key and this key down. So let's check that. And that is closing, so we don't need to worry about that. And now we're going to press our register key in the back. And you're going to start with the bottom spatula and then add the top one. Because the top one, if you notice, when I press the top one, this key also goes down. Let's show it from a different angle. So just with the bottom spatula, we're just looking at the register key, and that one is closing. But when I press the top spatula, is that key closing? So you can see better. And yes, it is. It's closing. So that's good. We don't have to fix that. Now, the last three keys you're going to adjust are the keys that are glued, pads that are glued into the instrument. So the top key is closed, so we don't have to worry about that. And then the trill keys, which are played by these little nubs back here. And we check and see if they are closing. And if they are not, I'm going to go ahead and turn the light back on. If the trill key or the top key is not closed,